Oh, yeah. Back again.
Yeah.
Here we are 2 months later, but only a week apart for you guys.
That's right. It's going to be a lot of editing in my future.
Yeah.
We can talk about that more. But for now, you want to play a little tune, get the show going.
Yeah, might as well hop in. We're both hungover. We might as well get this drink in us.
Yeah. Well, I already got it in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finish yours if you could. But
All right.
don't get us any more.
Yeah, I won't.
Thank you.
All right.
Higgins, I am hungover, so I would love for you to just do the intro for me. Just get that out of the way.
Wow. Welcome everybody to the Comixology Club, where we get together, we drink together, and then we even read a book, or we read a book, and then we're gonna talk to you guys about it together.
Yeah, together. That's the important part.
But the most important part is that we're friends.
That's right. Friends in your house with a couple microphones.
I was paraphrasing a little bit, but I think I got there.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time you've done an intro since we changed the name of the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pretty good. You didn't even stretch first either, so well done. Well done.
I know.
Okay, we talked about that. That is what we're going to do today. First, though, I'd love to talk a little bit about the business that sponsors this podcast where we do those things you said.
Oh, 008 Studios?
That's exactly right, Higgins. We're going to talk about 008 Studios, which is the sponsor of this podcast. And that business is ran by our friend and technically boss, Michael Lopez.
Yeah, but he's our friend first.
I would hope so. I mean, we're his friend first, but
boss last.
Yeah, we're getting more business heavy as the months go on, which I would love to talk about today a little bit. But about Michael's business first off. So yeah, 008 Studios. They're the guys that you would go to, you Higgins, if you wanted to do something like, say, I don't know, write a book, start a podcast, not make music. They don't do music, but they do other things. They do video games, like just basically everything else in the creative world except music.
I don't want to make anything, Snoop, but I bet you there's a lot of people out there that do.
Oh, absolutely. At least four. We know at least four people. We've talked to some of those people in our various personal lives. Your girlfriend, who's been on the show twice now, Bethany. Yeah. She was here earlier today. We'll give her a shout out real quick.
Oh yeah, say her name. B.
Yeah.
B. Old B.
Say her name. That is the letter B. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she's got a friend that Michael has been working on a book with. I don't know the name of said book.
Oh man!
But he's working on it, and that's the whole point, though, isn't it, Higgins? That Michael can help you make that book. Not you. We've already talked that you don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I won't make that book.
Other people want to make those books, and Michael's the guy that does that. Basically, what he's going to do is he's going to help kind of, if you need help, like you need, say you're doing not a book, but you're doing like, I don't know, some kind of creative endeavor that involves making video games. Well, you need a bunch of people to do that, right?
You need a guy that knows the guys and or girls
to hook you all
to
up
hook
together.
you up together.
Yeah, for work specifically. That's it. But yeah, Michael's going to do that. He's going to help you get funding. He's going to help get creative teams together, and they're going to make some good stuff. I have some stuff on his site that it's got some countdowns and
new stuff.
Yeah, new stuff around the corner, Higgins. Now, I told you a number to give me earlier if I asked for it.
4.
4 is the number. That's right. So he has 4 projects that are due to come out in the next 70 days or so. So before the end of the year.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so. He told me this last night when we were all...
Christmas came early, I guess.
And so will you once you start hearing some of these names. So big one, first off, is Michael's second book. So we've done an episode on his first book, which is called...
Eternal Crown, Dawning of the Red Sun.
He finally did it. Everyone, good job. Now, because you've got that in your brain, can you remember the title of the second one that's on the way?
The second one's easier. Eternal Crown, The Trial of the Clergy.
Yeah, why is that easier for you?
I think I end up confusing the dawning and the red sun in my mind, like flip and reverse them.
Like you flip from a dawn to a dusk?
Reading to the sun.
Reading to the dawn.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, well, you got it eventually, and that's all that matters to me. And you got the second one, yes. So the second book, The Eternal Crown, Trials of the Clergy, book 2 in the Eternal Crown.
That's coming
saga. It's on the timer here. We've got 71 days, 6 hours, 25 minutes, 57 seconds, 56 seconds. I could go on, but I won't. The point is, Unless we hear anything.
He better not break my heart.
He better not. You've got that on mic now too.
Yeah.
And he's going to listen to this. So pressure's on for him. But yeah, I'm hoping it comes out. And if it doesn't, we'll obviously keep people updated on any changes that need to happen. You know, that's the thing about the creative process as well.
You want your best product to come out.
Yeah, and you want it to come out when it's meant to come out. And that could be tomorrow, or that could be like 3 months after you do your last podcast. It's tough to say, really. Yeah. With that being said, we are going to be held to a more strict release schedule going forward, which I feel like is probably best for everybody.
Yeah, we're getting older now.
Yeah, but you know, we got to keep up with the times, and we need a podcast a month in these times.
Yeah, we can just release them in the exact number of days that we are years old.
Sure.
Which is about right.
Yeah, it's at least 20 or less years.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The other projects that are bound to come out kind of at the end of the year still. Few things I haven't even heard of. He hasn't mentioned any of this to me, but I'll say it out loud on microphone right now. There's something called Spellbound Alliance.
That sounds like a young adult book about wizards or witches.
Seems that way. I mean, all I know for sure is that witchcraft is a common belief in the kingdom of Belmore.
Is there a colon between Spellbound and Alliance?
No, it's two separate words, but no colons or apostrophes of any to speak of. Yeah. That's supposed to come out by the end of this year.
He didn't write that one.
No, I think, well, that's the thing, right? Is like Michael does his books. He's doing the Eternal Crown series. He's going to come out with his sci-fi series later down the road.
He's got that one about Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Providence.
You're gonna get a personal copy of that whenever it's ready. You know, he wants to make sure he gets it right for you because he knows how excited you are about it. Yeah, but there are some other things. The Bounty is another thing. The Bounty. I can tell you a little bit about the Bounty.
I haven't heard anything. That's coming out in 70 days.
71 days, 5 hours, 53 minutes, 50 seconds, 49 seconds. Things I can stop at any point. But yes, it's on the way. And it seems that Emmett Hallelujah Jones is a renowned bounty hunter and gunslinger that sets off on another high-paying contract. Ooh, it's a Western, Higgins.
It's a Western.
Seems that way. A just but focused man, Emmett will do anything to see it through, even if it means gunning down a few other memorable names in the process. However, in his travels, he finds something unexpected. He's introduced to a peace he had never known, a peace he had somehow always yearned for, but it had always been out of his reach because of who he had made himself to be, Higgins.
It sounds a little bit Indiana Jonesy too.
Yeah.
He's probably got a hat.
Oh, he's got a hat. Higgins, he's got three important things for any Western. He's got justice, he's got vengeance, and he's got redemption, all coming his way.
But mostly the hat.
Yeah. But all of that is coming your way, Higgins, in 71 days, 5 hours, 52 minutes, 50 seconds. It's coming, is my point. It's coming. Yes. So we'll talk more about that when we need to. Yeah. I'm going to ask him about kind of who's involved with this, because he's got a lot of stuff. I mean, these are just the 4 that are supposed to come out this year. He's got a bunch of other things, like that sci-fi series we mentioned. He's pretty heavily working on
with a game and a show and
a comic. Yeah. So point is, be on the lookout. I'll of course leave a link to Michael's website where you can check out these timers for all these things. You can buy some sweet merch. We mentioned some of that in the last episode.
Yeah, hoodies, shirts, buttons.
So yeah, check them out. And if you want to do something of your own, I think Michael's a good guy to work with. We've been working with him on this podcast for at least over a year.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And we're going
Whenever
to
you guys started getting tired of us saying stuff about ads, that's how long ago we did it.
Yeah, but we like to bring that back every now and again because it's good to have your eggs in other baskets.
Yeah.
Like in case this thing with Michael falls through, we always have the Coca-Cola company. If we mention it at least 2 more times.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that.
And I did use Smirnoff in our drink today, so.
Oh, lovely. We can talk more about that later.
I love a cool glass of Smirnoff.
Let that last one settle though before we bring in the third. But yes, so check out Michael's business. And with all that being said, we'll talk more about these projects and some other projects we're going to be doing for him in the future. But for now, let's get to the meat of this episode, the sweet meat of this episode, Higgins.
And I have a sweet tooth.
Yes, you do. And that's why you picked Sweet Tooth.
That's why I picked Sweet Tooth. Because I noticed that the show came out quietly, like 5 months ago or something like that.
I still don't believe, like, not a single word was said.
I've only ever still watched, like, the first 1 or 2 episodes. But that's because Netflix kicked me out for a while. Yeah. I'm back now for some reason. I can watch it on this TV for whatever reason, but not in my bedroom.
Well, don't tell them, Higgins, or else they'll shut that one out too. You know they listen to this podcast every time we come out with an episode.
That's what I'm saying. I got to watch a few things I've been wanting to watch.
Good for you. I want to get into Sweet Tooth season 2, but I didn't on purpose because I didn't want
what if we got spoiled, you know?
Yeah. Well, also, I just didn't want... Actually, I don't think it's going to spoil anything in this book. I think we've already had that spoiled in the first season of Sweet Tooth.
Oh, yeah?
Based on what I remember. But we're talking about the book, Volume 2, today. We did Volume 1 ages ago. Do you remember when we did that? Because I went back and looked. That was like episode 27 or something.
Man.
That we did. That's crazy.
That's like half of our podcast.
I know, yeah.
Which is probably like a year and a half or so. Something
easy.
like that.
Yeah, easy.
Maybe 2.
Mm-hmm. And we did that with another person who is unfortunately not here today. Steve has prior commitments, so he'll just have to feel bad when he eventually listens to this part right here.
People have birthdays. Sometimes you get invited to those birthdays.
Yeah.
I was invited to the birthday, but my commitments...
You know where your loyalty's lying.
Yeah.
With 008 Studios.
Yeah.
No, it's all right. We're more than okay with it. Steve, we'll get him in on another one. He's helped us out enough this year. You know, we talked about a shirtless bear fighter. He's probably exhausted from that still. So we're going to handle this one today, just the two of us, the old classic duo. We've talked about Sweet Tooth in the past, and you can go back and listen to that episode. Short kind of info about this series is it's written and drawn by Jeff Lemire, who has done many things that we all love.
100% looks like it's drawn by him.
Yes.
I can at least say that.
Yeah, which I have a lot of. That's kind of where I'm going to come at this volume with, because that's the thing is like doing a second volume is always tough because it's like, well, we've already talked about who's done it, which is Jeff Lemire. It's published by Vertigo. He's
our favorite boy.
He is
one of our favorite boy.
Although I have to say, I really like this first off, but I can kind of see some of his weaknesses a little bit in reading this volume.
Yeah.
Not that he has many, and honestly, his weaknesses are still like he's one of the greatest comic writers to be around today and maybe ever, honestly. But yeah, I definitely saw some of his tropes kind of pop up in this, which I never noticed before.
Well, you read enough of somebody, you probably notice that they go over their little themes and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's definitely what happened with it. I have another book in my head that I'm going to mention later when I get into it. But yeah, as far as talking about kind of this one and what it was for me, I'm going to make a big focus on the art. Obviously some of the story. But just, just again, quick credit where credit is due. There was a colorist that we maybe didn't mention last time, but I saw their name pop up in this. Higgins, you said it with just such grace. Can you do it one more time for me?
It's Jose Villarrubio.
That's right. Higgins.
Did I, or is it Rubia? Did I do it wrong?
No.
I nailed it?
You nailed it, 100%.
All right,
yeah.
Thanks.
That's who did colors.
I even rolled my R's a little bit there.
You did. That was specifically what I was hoping you'd nail. And
I wonder if it's Villa Rubio. Nah, Villa sounds right.
If it sounds right, then it is right. Higgins, go with your gut. Yeah, they came back. They did this one. I have a synopsis for this. Since Steve filled in our last synopsis of the first volume. So I'm going to catch us back up. Sweet Tooth basic premise is there's a virus that breaks out, and around the same time there's some kids that are being born with like deer antlers and pig noses, and it's just this question of, did the kids cause the virus? Did the virus cause the kids? What do we do? How are we going to fix this before all of humanity dies out? So that's the first book in a nutshell. And then the synopsis for the second one is this. Jeff Lemire explores the heartbreaking story of Jeopard and how he went from a devoted husband to the ruthless mercenary he is now. Meanwhile, Gus is captured in a camp with other hybrid creatures where he meets a Dr. Singh, a scientist studying the plague that's wiped out so much of the world. By traveling into Gus's past, Singh will learn more about the plague, as well as clues of how some of it might relate to Gus and his father themselves. So that's
what you get a lot of in this one. Old Jeopard. You get to see his whole life story.
Yes, which that was kind of in the first volume. Most of it was just setting up that initial premise of
why he had to sell our boy out at the end of the last volume.
That's the hook. Is like, well, why? Because he has been nice-ish to that kid up until the very end, where he trades him for a bag. The big thing is,
what's in the bag?
What's in the bag, we find out, and also why he did what he did to get that bag.
I think I knew what was in the bag the last time we recorded.
Yeah, I think you had already read ahead, but you didn't spoil it, so thank you.
Spoil it.
Because I've seen the first season, which I think, of the Netflix show that covers most of these 2 volumes, but I don't know if I knew anything about that bag. Like, I don't know if that was even worked into the show.
Yeah.
So this was to read it and kind of find out that way was probably the best reveal for me in this second volume. I comparing the first volume to the second volume, I like this one a lot more, and I think that in the first volume's defense, it just has to
setting up a world.
Yeah,
setting up a world.
And so that's why with this one, it's okay. You already know, you know the world. We've already gotten kind of the basic, current plot out of the way. So now let's go back and really focus on some characters and what makes them tick the way they do currently. That's, as you mentioned, that's kind of the bulk of this one, is going into Jeopard's, the big man, his backstory and why he's just around. Because the thing about him is, just watching him even in that first volume, you're like, why is this guy doing anything? Like, why? He just seems like a guy who just lives in a terrible world and wants to die. So why is he around?
He just happened upon a deer boy and then just was like, come on.
Yeah.
And then you find out that he wanted his wife in a bag. That the glasses guy, I can't remember the glasses guy's name
Abbott.
now. Yeah, Abbott.
Yeah.
Promised him at the end of this volume.
Yes.
The end of this volume.
Yeah, basically what you're saying is that at the end of the last volume we talked about, he's given that bag after turning over Gus, who's the deer boy, and we find out it's his wife's remains in the bag, and there was the deal is
he brings him back a live specimen
of one of these hybrid kids, because
turns out he just happened upon the most important one.
Yeah,
the Kyle XY.
That's I have a note
of the universe.
I have a note that just says he's Kyle XY.
I haven't watched that show, but
that's all you need to know.
They don't have a belly. He doesn't have a belly button.
Do you remember what they marketed that show? That was like the main hook.
That was the main hook
in the ad. It's just like this freak has no belly button.
It means he wasn't born.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, he is that. But anyway, yeah, it's just for this volume, I think why it works so much better is because we get to focus on just a couple of characters, and also it does 2 things. It's able to give us more insight into these characters and kind of care more about why they're doing what they're doing and why they feel the way they feel. But also it is building the world still. Like, that's the thing with the first volume, is a lot of it is to establish this is what the world's like. This is the state the world is currently in. This is what's around. The plot is to get Gus from A to B, but that's always kind of the B plot. Whereas the A plot in the first volume is, this is what the world is now. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's flip it back and go, yeah, but why are these people the way they are? And I think what's interesting with what they do is you have Gus, he was born in this world. This is all he's known. And so that's the way that someone in that environment growing up, knowing that's all it is, that's how they would act. And that's why they do what they do. And then we're getting the contrast of that, right? Where it's like, here's Jeopard, who lived in the world pre-pandemic.
Lost everything,
and honestly wasn't really in a good place at that time anyway.
He was the old washed up hockey player.
Yeah.
That was only good for fighting, which I guess is good because now he just punches the shit out of everybody.
And that's what's crazy too, is that even though this world is objectively way worse than the world he was in, he almost fits into it better, and he has more of a purpose in a world like this because that was what he was doing anyway.
I don't know if this came out first or if The Last of Us came out first, but just this little first 2 volumes is pretty similar feeling.
Yeah, the character of Jeopard is just the character of Joel, but almost like more of a hard ass.
Even crotchetier.
Yes, yeah. He's like Joel, but also has the personality and looks kind of a Clint Eastwood. Yeah. In a Gran Torino.
Oh yeah, we did talk about him being basically Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Last time I remember.
I think it's a really good kind of juggling act to do, and just dedicate it to this volume where let's do a little bit of Jeopard's backstory and what he's like, kind of where that puts him in the current day. And then let's jump back to Gus, where it's this kid who has just been thrusted into something he wasn't prepared for, and every person he deals with is just making it worse for him. And what is that doing to a character like that?
Yeah, I won't tell you too much because I read ahead, but you can see him develop a little bit more away from just the kid that wanted to eat chocolate.
Yeah, well, I
Pretty
mean,
like even just in this,
yeah, no,
you get that too.
yeah. There's not much of a sweet tooth to be had in this volume, honestly. Yeah,
That's what got him into the mess in the first place. He's like, no more candy for me. That's why the old guy got me. Turns out chocolate bars don't grow out of the ground.
Yeah, happens once, shame on me. Won't happen again though. Yeah, I think that they do some really interesting things with Gus here, and also going into his past because
it introduces a lot of new characters. Which there's the Dr. Singh guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he's pretty interesting because you're like, he's just an evil doctor dude, but then you're like, he's listening to classical music.
Yes.
He was probably just going to cut him open, but then he found out he didn't have a belly button, and he was like,
this is just like Kyle XY.
This is just like Kyle XY, my favorite TV show.
This could mean something, yeah.
Of the early to late 2000s.
Yes. Probably a 2006.
Yeah, something like that.
Just seems like that was a horrible
year for television. It was on ABC Family before it turned into Freeform.
Yeah. There's something for the kids to look up. There you go. I agree, like, to add in these characters, the character of Seeing It is really interesting, and what I like about all of the new characters they throw in is everyone's kind of different. Even with the ones who are like, they're evil, they're the militia gang. They all have their various kind of personalities and motivations. But just like anyone else in this world, they all have one thing in common, and it's just they're driven by those self-interest. Everybody in this story, for anything that they do, is ultimately driven by their own self-interest, and
at the end of the day, like they're just trying to survive too.
Yeah,
they're still in the middle of a pandemic apocalypse, so it's like you get the Walking Dead aspect of things too, where it's like they might have been a good guy, but like
they can't be.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and
sometimes that makes people evil, and then sometimes that makes people good, but they still murder.
Yeah, and I think it also is just it gives people who are already evil an excuse, because I think that with both Singh and Abbott, because Singh is the kind of the science department of the operation, and then Reese is here. What's up, man?
What's up, buddy?
God, you see that mustache?
Yeah,
it's looking fantastic. Hope everyone heard that.
Yeah. He was so quiet.
He was. He's just so respectful. We'll get him on the show once, and then he can be as loud and rude as he wants to. But with the characters of Singh and Abbott, I think they wanted to do stuff like this anyway. And this just kind of gives them that justification to be terrible human beings. Because when we first see Abbott in the flashbacks, like why there is a connection between Jeopard and Abbott, and kind of why that leads into him giving Gus up for that bag.
He's just kidnapping a bunch of pregnant women.
Yeah, because this was...
You find out Jeopard's wife was pregnant.
Yes.
After the kids had already, the animal kids had already started being born.
Yes, because those flashbacks take place basically a few years maybe after the outbreak happened. And so there's been rumors going around because, TVs are down, radio's down. So there's just rumors floating around of like, hey, kids that are being born these days have antlers, they have, fur. And it obviously is true. But back then, people were looking for answers.
They're like, that's crazy. That can't be a thing.
Yeah. And they're attacked by outlaws at one point who want them for that reason. And Abbott saves those people, or saves Jeopard and his wife, and is like, "Hey, those guys, they were gonna just take your wife and do who knows what, but like we've got a society over here." They just trick him, and
then they steal her and put her in like an incubation room
because they're going to wait until she goes into labor, take the child, and then use it for their own experiments because they want to take these kids and see if there's a cure to be had from cutting them up. And
because you kind of find out that through context clues and stuff like that the animal kids don't get the sickness, whatever the sickness is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like they're trying to come up with the cure, but in like the most evil way possible.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like I feel like that all this is really done for those characters, Singh and Abbott in particular, is it just gives them a reason to do something they probably would have done already. Like they're those kind of people. This just gave them that push they needed to go that extra mile. And like, I mean, because that's the thing is like they are animal children. They're hybrid kind of freaks to a lot of these people. But at the end of the day, they're children, and that just doesn't mean anything to them. So if they can hide their own kind of intent behind like, well, we're doing this for the better of humanity, that's just going to be allowed. And I found that very interesting, that that's kind of all this world is at this point. It was said when it was kind of created, it wanted to be The Road meets Bambi. And I think that is about as perfect of a comparison as it could have.
It does have an old man and a boy.
And a horrible, horrible place, just getting shit
on
all day.
And parents keep getting murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Bambi.
Yeah, it's just like Bambi. Yeah, we finally see a picture of
Dandy.
Not Dandy. Gus's mom.
Oh yeah.
We see a picture of her, which may or may not actually be his mom, since we know now he's not born.
Yeah, and she's pregnant, or at least seemingly pregnant
in the picture, which is interesting.
I still don't know. I still don't know in my future reading what that's all about.
Yeah, you haven't gotten to that.
I'll figure it out maybe.
Yeah, I like when Jeff Lemire kind of sets this stuff up where he gives you just a little bit more to kind of keep you going as far as into the bigger mystery of the world, but then at the same time, he's very quick to throw something just like that can throw off the whole theory that you've been building, because we do find out that Gus doesn't have a belly button, so he didn't have an umbilical, like he wasn't born in the traditional sense apparently, and
little test tube baby.
He might be a test tube baby, but at the same time, even after we find that out, you do see a picture of his mother who does look pregnant in that picture, and so it makes you go, oh, well, maybe just for reasons later down the line, he was born like that. That was him in her stomach. It also could just mean nothing. He's very, very good at kind of throwing these either misdirects that can be kind of perceived as little hints of the truth, or vice versa.
Yeah, and then there was what's the same thing where you find out that it's like, hey, this kid might be 9, and up until he got there, they just assumed that it's like it happened. The plague happened like 7 years ago or something like that.
They said that the breakout happened 8 years ago, and he says he's 9, so it's roughly a year. He's saying he's a year older than the virus.
And once Dr. Singh kind of sees like, oh look, this kid's like he might actually be 9.
Yes,
and that means there was animal people before the plague, and that just makes him want to do more experiments on him in the first, like even more.
Yes, and you know his what's supposed to be his ultimate goal of that is to figure out a cure for and keep humanity alive.
Maybe,
and while that might be
maybe Gus is the reason why the
virus happened
in the first place.
Yeah, and what's great about Singh and kind of that nuance to him is he seems, just based on what he says and how he acts, it's almost like, yeah, I am trying to cure this, but it's mostly just so, one, I can be the guy that created the cure, but also I don't even know if he cares if he ever finds a cure. I think the most important thing to him is being the guy to know what happened. Like, I think that all that matters to him at the end of the day is that he figures out what is going on, because he's just a guy who craves knowledge that much. Same like with Abbott, what seems to be his kind of general motivations are just having this level of control
over all these people.
Yeah.
Because he's not doing nice things at all.
No.
Just cutting kids open, making women have babies for him.
Yeah.
He trapped Jeopard in a cage for a while, and that's when we met our other favorite new character.
Yes.
Kind of favorite new character, Johnny.
And I feel like that whole kind of setup for that, like keeping Jeopard alive after he tricked them into coming back and then separating him from his wife. Jeff Lemire is a great writer, and that kind of shows in how the plot progresses, because Abbott is a guy who will kill anyone for the smallest inconvenience, or just he is paranoid, you can tell. So why keep a man like Jeopard, who is clearly unhinged and also like very dangerous, alive? It's because Abbott knows he can use him.
He can maybe use him eventually, yeah.
Anyone with a sane mind would still probably just kill that dude, because you don't really need him. With all the resources you have, you don't necessarily need him. But Abbott is basically just playing all his angles to get what he wants. So he's like, well, I can just send this guy off And if he comes back, great.
He'll
If
probably
not,
die, but that's what he assumed. He was like, he'll probably just die and I'll never have to worry about him again.
And that's the thing is like when he asked Sing, where did this kid come from? He's like, Jepperd brought him. He's like, oh, didn't know that guy was even around still. Like it was just a gamble that he was willing to take. That's all really good stuff. The only thing about this one, I think the pacing of this and the way that certain reveals are kind of like the way they unfold, I don't think it works as well as it should. And it mostly is just because of where it happens. On the other side of things, like we've talked about Jepperd and kind of why he gave up Gus to get the bones of his dead wife and bring her home. But on Gus's end, he's also talking to Sing, and the big part of that is like, where did you come from? What does your dad know? And so they go into that. They hypnotize Gus and get him to kind of relive these memories out loud so they can figure out where that cabin is and then hopefully find some research. Yeah. Because they know, they're like, we know this kid is probably like made in a lab, baby. But we need to figure out, is that lab where he's from? Is there a clue to where that lab is? So they hypnotize him to get him to relive these memories and kind of give them hints. And the big reveal on Gus's side of the story is we knew from the first volume that his dad was kind of crazy, like very like fire and brimstone. Everyone's going to hell. Religious guy. Yeah. I think that reveal coming when it as early as it did in the first volume kind of ruined this scene. Like it didn't hit as hard for me because I already kind of knew how he was. Yeah, how weird he was. But the way it's played out is supposed to be this huge thing. Like he was, it's like, oh man, his dad was the doctor. Yeah. And his dad was the guy that made him. He was the scientist. And this is only, I only think this because I have seen that first season of the Netflix show. So they kind of already, either they've changed it for that or they've revealed what it is in that earlier. Yeah. But there's a scene early on in these hypnotist flashbacks that Gus is having where they're like, hey, what's a great memory you have at your house? And it's a memory of his dad reading to him. And with Jeff Lemire's art, it goes from very simple, kind of clean lines and just very friendly, like colors, warm colors, to just the most depressing, like everyone's got 80 wrinkles all over their face. Like it switches. And his drawing's so disgusting. Yes. Like most of the time, a person's face almost always looks a little gross. Yeah. But it's those simple scenes where, again, he's reading to him and they're having a great, like he's reading his favorite kid's book. It's probably like Dandy or something else. And then you see him all wrinkled up and reading out of like his makeshift Bible. Yes. And that is the reveal I'm talking about, where we knew Gus was very religious as a child, but we didn't realize that the Bible that his father has been reading to him all these years, it's like written by him. He basically saw himself as an apostle. Yeah. And was like, God comes to me in the middle of the night and tells me to write this down, and now I'm saying it to you. And while I think that reveal, like that being the reveal as far as like, oh, like this is just this guy's words that he's touting as God's words kind of thing, that is a big reveal for this story that we hadn't gotten before. I think it would have been so much better if anything we saw with the dad before now was that friendly demeanor that we had kind of gotten glimpses of. So if it was just like when his dad's dying in the first volume, we see that. If we had just seen him like kind of becoming frail and weak, and we would feel like, oh, it's sad that his dad died. It's the only guy around. But he was also at the same time in that spouting off all this similar stuff about like the good will stay and everyone else perishes. So we already knew that about him. I feel like if we didn't have that and then it just kind of flips into this volume when it did, that would have been so much heavier. And it does still work as a really good reveal for Gus's mindset, where he sees. I will say, because I read farther, it leads into other stuff, which actually you're like, maybe his dad's not as crazy as we thought. He just was a little sick brain, so it came out a little crazy sounding. I see. Okay. It's still all real wild shit that like they're saying, but that's a compliment, honestly, to this story, is that it doesn't pull its punches. Like the premise from the very beginning is this world sucks, and it is our world just given a different kind of virus that is way worse, and it doesn't shy away from that at any point. Like this volume is just as kind of off-putting and depressing as the first one, if not more so, because now you have reasons into why Jeopard is the way he is, and that makes it sadder because that's a man who, even in the world, the way it, like when it was good, was struggling, but he had this one person that kind of kept him going, and now this volume for him is like, I've buried my wife. Why am I still here? Like,
he just gets a bottle of liquor and then gets
drunk in an alley.
Just gets drunk in an alley and basically asks someone to beat the shit out of him,
hoping he will die.
He'll die.
And it's almost like kind of this.
Doesn't he like have like a flash in his brain where he sees Gus though, or something like that? And you're like, man, he's gonna go back for that kid.
Yes, he does, because it again is his purpose up until this point in this world was to get his wife's body back, because before they left their home when the virus first broke out, he made a promise saying, I'll bring you back, because she was worried, like, I don't want to leave, like, this is our home. And he's like, don't worry, I'll bring you back. So he keeps his promise in the end by bringing her remains back and burying it. And there's a scene where he takes a gun out, puts it in his mouth, but he can't do it. And so he's, throughout the rest of the story, he wanders around, gets drunk, eggs guys into beating the shit out of him to hopefully kill him. But almost as a, divine intervention, they stop and they leave him, and he's alive.
Yeah, and then he starts to walk off too. Does that happen in this one? He runs into that hotel that they went in the first volume?
Yes, yeah. And that's kind of the moment you're talking about, where as he's kind of fading in and out of consciousness after kind of getting beat up, wondering, why am I here? You see a flash of Gus. And so he's like, oh, that's why I'm here. I have to go back and get this kid.
It's like him and Gus both, for whatever reason, have these dreams about each other that seem like prophetic almost. Because like Gus saw dreams of
Dandy.
Well, of Jeopard before even before he even met him in the first volume.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and that was the thing that I'm like, oh, this is a thing that Jeff Lemire likes to do apparently, because
it's like prophecy type stuff.
Well, this exact kind of sequence of events, that dream you're talking about, where he sees Jeopard and then he meets him, and then there's one in this volume where he's in the woods and there's like a talking Dandy, which is this world's version of Bambi, like that childhood story. There's a talking version of that character, and what seems to be like other woodland creatures being like, hey, you got to come this way, come into this cave. And then he wakes up. That exact sequence of things happens in another Jeff Lemire book, which you've also read, which is Descender.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. Now, Descender came after this.
So he stole it from this, maybe.
It makes so much sense to me, because the setup for Descender is the exact same as Sweet Tooth. Like, I never thought about it until this, where
it's a boy looking for like his robot friend or something like that.
Yeah, so with the and we'll probably get to it at some point later down the road, but with the premise of Descender, it's in the future and robots kind of coexist with humans, do their, they're their butlers, whatever. And then one day, all these gigantic ones show up and then kill a huge percent of the galaxy population.
Apocalypse happens, and then shitty people get to do shitty things.
Yeah, like they start killing off all the robots, and then one day there's a boy robot that wakes up and he's having the same dreams, and now everyone's after this kid, and it's like, well, this kid's linked to the thing that happened all those years ago. This is the same thing. Gus is somehow linked to the breakout of the pandemic. So he's now having these kind of visions, which will inevitably lead him to the answers that we've been all asking is, what are you? What is this? And also, what is the point? Like, why did this happen? And I'm still really pumped to figure it out. But that was the thing where I'm like, oh, he's done this before. This is actually the first time he's done it, because Descender is just that again. But like for me, I read Descender and then this, so I'm like, it's just, they didn't ruin anything for me, but it just made me go, huh. Like,
the trips still happen everywhere.
Yeah. So I still really like it. But that being said, I think I like Descender more, even though it's the exact same kind of characters and setup. I think the reason I like that one more is because he got better at the pacing of his reveals and where they go. I think Descender's an amazing comic, and it builds tension exactly where it needs to and answers as many questions as you need it to keep you going. This is doing that, but I don't think he quite mastered it in this. And that's not even a complaint.
Which
it's
this
just
is
a criticism.
Like his second big hit, right? Or something like that. Second or third big hit.
Yeah.
Because I have Essex County over there, and I think that was his first one.
He'd done something, we talked about it before, I think it was called like Mr. Nobody.
Yeah.
or nobody, and that was what got him on the map with Vertigo, who did this when they were still around.
Yeah.
What I find interesting about Jeff Lemire is he's not afraid to kind of revisit his early stuff. Like, there's the new version of Sweet Tooth that
Oh yeah,
I believe
it's
is
like Sweet
ongoing.
Tooth: The Return or something like that.
And it's not so much a sequel.
I just saw that on
it's a
line.
it's not so much a sequel. Apparently, it's a more of a reboot.
Yeah,
and so he is going back,
fixing the things that he liked or liked and didn't like,
or tackling it in a different way. I think that he, like, his early stuff, as you mentioned, is like very depressing. Like this and Underwater Welder is very depressing. I think that as he's grown as a person and kind of evolved his work, he wants to tackle some things, like some old ideas with a kind of a new outlook. As far as I understand, he did the Netflix show. He was fairly involved with it, I think, in the early kind of creative process.
It was definitely prettier than this book.
And it's more hopeful. And I feel like that's intentional, even though he could have, I mean, the stuff that he's done in this could just be taken from the book as is, and you adapt that tone. But I think that he wanted to kind of hit it with a more positive light, just because that's kind of where he's been at. And it's interesting to go back and watch his early work. You mentioned it. He does draw a lot of it. And I think for this tone of a book, it's a perfect fit. Like him doing his Jeff Lemire's art is never what I would consider like.
It's not good. It's unique.
It's stylized.
Yeah,
and
it's good. It's just not like typically good.
It's very flawed in kind of its. Honestly, it's characters. I feel like that. I don't know if he just draws this way because he likes to, or if this is how he draws. Like, I don't kind of know his process with that. I've never looked into it.
Same character's face never looks the same way twice almost either. It's just kind of like he just kind of half sets it up and he's like, all right, I'm going to do it kind of this way this time.
Yeah. It's almost like he rushes through that.
This scene's a little more dark and gritty, so they're going to look a little more disheveled.
Yeah.
Like that Dr. Singh guy looks ridiculous.
Like some of his,
and like the hypnotism like scene.
Yeah.
He's like dark and wrinkly, and his forehead's got lines all over it.
His face shape varies from like trapezoids to triangles to just like it is very just kind of. It seems like, I think you're right. It seems like very kind of quick sketch. Okay, let's go back and just detail what I did, and it works though. It really does. I think for these kinds of stories that are just so kind of raw and grounded, while at the same time you've got like these surreal elements of this kid has visions and he's tripping out and like walking through his own head as he's going through his memories. Like, it works so well for that kind of approach.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fun too, because you're not going to get that kind of effect out of any other kind of medium. Like, to do it in on the comic page, it's going to hit in a way different way. Like, the Netflix show is very well done. It's very pretty, but you're not going to get anything like some of the stuff you get in this.
Yeah, I think my favorite like 2-page spread was like him and Dr. Singh like walking down his antler and on his head and like out of his ear or in his ear hole and stuff like that when he's laying down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, that's pretty tight. That's like some Inception looking stuff.
Yeah, and it totally adds to this whole thing of like he's hypnotized and he's kind of just going in deeply into his subconscious. Like, it's supposed to be as trippy as it looks. And what I also like about his art is how it drives that particular moment of the story and where each character is at in it, what they're feeling. So a kind of heavy moment is at the very beginning where Gus was taken in by these people and he's left in the kennels with a bunch of other kind of hybrid kids who we hadn't seen in this story up until that point. And to see Gus next to those characters is just it's a crazy visual because they're not like him in the slightest.
Oh yeah, they're way more animal than kid.
And it varies too from child. Like, some of them can talk a little bit, one's more advanced than the other, and then you have some that literally just look like
straight up like animals that can stand. Yeah, that can stand up. That's what you notice like a little bit more. It's like they're like feral basically.
Yeah.
Some of them are just so much animal. And then like the pig girl's like probably the next smartest, and she looks like a girl but with like a pig face. So not as creepy looking, basically.
Even her face is more animal than person.
Yeah.
And Like her sentence.
He's almost completely person. Like the only thing animal about him is that he has antlers, basically.
Yes,
and
yeah.
maybe a little bit of fur on his face.
That changes even depending on where he's at and who he's dealing with. I feel like that in those moments where he's in the kennels, he looks more human than
just compared to him, yeah.
But then you get him into a room with, say, like Dr. Singh, who sees him as a test subject, and I feel like there's a conscious effort there at certain points to make him more animalistic. And I think with Jeff Lemire's art being the way we've been talking about, where it almost changes panel to panel like the character designs do, it flows really well, because it's like, well, that's what he's been doing, so it's almost just natural. Like you don't even, until you go back and really look at each one, you don't notice that he's doing it. And
it's like the same thing with like Jeopard too. Like he looks less dark, lighter colors when in the flashbacks when he's with his wife and happy, and then like there's just shadows all over his face. Like anytime you see him now, when he's older, like his eyes are in the dark.
Yeah, and it's not even a thing of like, well, he's older now. Obviously, it would be, like that does play into it, but that isn't all that it's doing. It's everything else you said. Yeah, it reflects the mood that the character is in, where I can look at this and go, he's the saddest dear boy in the world right now, and
there's no light in his heart.
Yeah, and like no one has to tell me in the story. You know, you get it. I used to think that he doesn't do art that much anymore because he can't. Like he writes so much and he's always busy. I don't even know if it's all that. I feel like part of it is he knows his style and what fits best with it. So it's almost like
sometimes he doesn't want to pair a story up with the way that he draws.
Yes, and I think he saves it for these kinds of stories.
It only fits like certain stuff, like what's the Gideon Falls, like that one fit his style.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other ones we read by him. Like he draws Black Hammer or nah?
He writes Black Hammer.
Okay.
I don't know. See, Black Hammer's gotten so big that he might have drawn a story here or there, but mostly it's other artists coming in. But that again, that makes sense, because Black Hammer is supposed to be this love letter to all these superheroes that, you know, like your Batmans, your Superman. Like you can look at most of the characters in Black Hammer and go, oh, this is that version of Green Lantern. So I don't think his art style would fit most of that kind of that golden age aesthetic. And he's okay with that. And I think it also is kind of, it divides his attention. His writing in this is really clever, but it's also very kind of short and brisk and to the point. And I think that with his other stories, when he kind of wants to do more with his ideas, it makes more sense to just dedicate himself to writing, or just dedicate himself to art. It's just a guy who knows this world very well.
Just knows how to put some pages together with some squares.
Yeah,
I can't remember what those things are called right now in comics.
Those rectangular objects that are on your page. Yeah, he's
frames. There it is.
There you go. That's very, very cinematic. He also has a great kind of handle of framing his action and like his kind of. I made notes of this because I just thought it was really a simple thing, but a fun way to play with the panel layouts and everything. Is I think the last issue is we get the finale of the flashback of Jeopard, where he eventually breaks out and gets to his wife. So we see that at the very beginning, and then it cuts to the current day where he's healed a little bit, and now he's like, oh, I gotta go get Gus back. Well, at the beginning of that issue and the very end of that issue, there are two panels that they're the exact same shot, but it's just different points in time. So one is after a guy lets him out of the cages in the flashback, and it's like, he asks him, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to kill everyone. And then in the current day, these two ladies, same thing. It's like, he's getting out of bed, and they're like, what are you going to do? And it's just the same exact shot, but in the present day, and I'm going to go kill them all. So
I'm going to get everybody.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a crazy new thing that's been done. That kind of stuff that bookend kind of technique has been done countless times in various other things, but it was used really well.
Still a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good story. One of the big things for Gus that we kind of find out through these flashback scenes is how he feels about the world and about people. We knew he was very religious, and then we find out like, oh, his version of religion is his dad thinks he's a prophet, and he's just been listening to this man spout very like aggressive nonsense for
fire and brimstone,
and
stuff.
And so now knowing that and hearing Gus talk about certain things, because they ask him countless times, like, hey, like, did your dad have like a lab like we did? And it's like, no, science is evil and like all men are awful kind of thing. Hearing Gus talk about it the way he did after getting that insight into why he's as religious as he is changes his character completely for me. It's kind of a dangerous child with this mindset of, I forget how his dad put it, but basically it's like,
we're all sinners. Everybody's bad.
Yeah, it's like everybody's bad that's here and they deserve to die kind of. Like it's very much that.
They deserve to get sick.
Yeah.
He's getting to the point where he kind of trusted people, some people at least. And then like as soon as he gets betrayed by Jeopard at the end of the first one we read, it's like he just like loses it all again. He has no faith in anybody except for the few like animal children that he's also getting tortured with.
Yes, that's what it was. He basically was saying the kids that are here, they're the pure. They're it was like talking about New Eden. That's what it was. His dad basically like went insane and had come to this conclusion that the world that they're in, the earth they're on, is now the new Eden, and Gus is the new Adam. That's how he described it. And that's the kind of mentality that this kid is developing of, oh, like we're supposed to be here and all the humans are supposed to die off. And it's very interesting with him kind of how he came to that, because I feel like that was just buried in his subconscious and now it's been brought out through the hypnotism. So there's that element of it. And if Gus is as linked to all of this as it seems he is, it might come down to a choice where he can either help cure humanity or let them go and then start this new era of hybrid kids. And that's kind of where we're left now.
Yeah.
And that I found very, very interesting, to go from like this kid who wanted to go out and see the world, and now he's in 2 volumes, he's already kind of transitioning into that.
He's already turning into Carl from The Walking Dead.
Yeah, it's very much that, exactly. But do you like that element of it? I know you've been reading, but just kind of going off this volume, like, do you like that approach to that? Or would you kind of want more of this, like, no, like, hold on to your innocence, like you could be the hope we need kind of thing?
Once he gets into the later volumes, like his frame of mind kind of changes a few times. He's still like a 9-year-old kid, so like he's very like moment to moment, like what his mood's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
So like you see that a lot too, and like, man, all this prophecy stuff, you're like, is there something to this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, I don't want to say any more than that because we're not there yet. But
we'll get there one day.
When we get there, you're like, man, maybe his dad wasn't as crazy as you thought.
Yeah, and there's clearly more to that mother character that we don't yet know, which is another good hook for the next volume or 2. Like, this has been really fun to read because it's doing this kind of open and close volume format really well, where it's like, okay, well, there's a bigger picture here, and they do tease me at the very end to get me to go to the next one, but also like this part of the story has wrapped up really well. Like, having just this volume to focus on just these 2 characters and their past, which is something we didn't have before. Like, we've got it, and now we'll probably get more, but we've gotten enough to kind of go into a different element of the story.
They got plenty of stuff. Yeah. If I hadn't got confused about what we were reading, like I wouldn't have read this much, but like I read 190 pages in like an hour to an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah,
I was like burning through it, and it wasn't because it was a little bit because I thought I had to.
Yeah.
But also it went by quick because each corner was a new thing that's like, oh, what's that gonna add to the story?
What's that gonna be? No, you were quite ahead. You asked me when I walked in, is this far enough? Do I need to keep going? And I was like, I'm pretty sure you're 10 issues ahead of me. So yes, we can move on. I'm excited to get into it more later down the road for sure. It's just like any Jeff Lemire story. It's doing things really well.
Nailed it.
Yeah. You can definitely see kind of it's his earlier work, and he's kind of messing with different ideas that he then perfects in other stories, throwing his art in there to kind of complement the rest is just, it's such a
Brings
good
it
pairing.
back in.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about the colors a lot, but it's the same as last time. Like, it's just
Well, a
really,
little watercolory, a lot of blacks.
it just adds to the chaos of the artwork, and it's kind of like,
Lots of shadows.
yes, very kind of abstract. And like when people are in cages and they've got those big, just kind of scared eyes, it hits 100% with every single character. It doesn't matter how many wrinkles they have, and everybody's got so many wrinkles.
Or how many pig noses they got.
I'm excited to learn more about this. I mean, just having these kinds of people exist in this world, and they're doing what they're doing. And again, how does it affect a child like this who just kind of walked into it a week ago? And now you've got other new elements that are going to affect him in different ways.
So many new people.
Yeah. And
there's even like stuff that he has, like Gus has in his little prophecy dreams that you like see in this volume that doesn't come up until like 5 to 6 issues down the line that you haven't even read yet.
I can't wait for the issue where they talk about how he's just like Kyle XY.
Yeah. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Well, this came out in 2010, and so Kyle XY would have been done by then. So,
yeah.
Like, there's no excuse not to throw in that reference.
Maybe that's why Michael Sheen liked it so much.
When you turn the page and it's just this man holding a Dear Boys like shirt up, and he's got no belly button. It's the dumbest thing. It works really well. I think I'm done with it though. I'd love to give it a review, and then Higgins, you could tell me about a little something I drank earlier.
What fiction? Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about that.
Yeah,
we finished it early. So it wasn't on my brain.
Nope.
Neither one of us really wanted too much more alcohol in our systems today.
No, we've had our fair share in the last day or two.
What fictional rating would you like to give it? I mean, very important, serious rating would you like to give this book?
Well, Higgins, that's the only kind of rating that I bring to this podcast, as you know. So for my rating, it's just taking into account all the things that we've talked about today. Another good volume. Can't wait to read more. And for that reason, I would love to give it 7. How do they do deer antlers? Is it like it's a 7-pointer?
Yeah, 7-point buck.
Is that a good one?
I mean, that's pretty big.
That's decent.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
Then that's what I'm gonna give it a 7-pointer.
It's a little lopsided, but I mean, like, it can't be perfect.
I mean, it matches his art, so it's fine.
Yeah, and then I was leaning towards doing some antler things, but I'll come up with something else. I can think of something.
Thanks for giving me the easy one.
I think I'm gonna go with a 4 to 5 minute long hypno dream.
Oh,
that's probably good, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you're seeing in that dream.
Yeah,
what
he saw his mom, so
that's good.
A 4 to 5 minute hypno dream where you got to see your mom that you don't remember. That's what I give this book.
Love that for him. Yeah. What kind of in your hypno dream? What kind of childhood book is your dad reading to you?
That's a tough one. I was a big Hop on Pop guy when I was a kid.
It's a weird book to read with your dad that you could also call Pop.
Yeah,
but we won't.
That was the one I went back and that was the one I read a lot. Hop on Pop.
Yeah,
by Dr. Seuss.
Just hopped on your Pop and then read a little Hop on Pop.
Yeah,
love that for you. All right, well that's good stuff all around. I can't wait to get into the next volume and we see what else is really sad and depressing in that world.
Now that we got that out of the way, I'll tell you what we complimented our thoughts with.
Yeah,
is a fancy drink. We have a glass that's it's a martini glass. It's fancy. Mm-hmm. I made a chocolate martini for us today.
Gosh darn it, you did. With some Nesquik chocolate syrup that I brought.
Yeah, I even garnished it. I should have taken a picture. I didn't. I'll figure something out, I guess.
Higgins, it's okay for just every now and again, this stuff is for you and me.
Yeah.
Like, we deserve that.
That being said, it's some vodka, some chocolate liqueur, and some Bailey's Irish cream.
Yeah. You got some Bailey's chocolate liqueur
Bailey's
as well.
Chocolate liqueur too, yeah.
Double Baileysing it?
Baileysing it.
Yeah, we were Baileying
it.
We're doing that thing, twice. Yep. As you can probably tell, it's gotten us pretty decent. We only had one.
I definitely made it. I probably made like technically 2 drinks worth in that one because it wasn't. I wanted it to be close to the top because I wanted it to look like like a full on martini where it's like just below the bottom of the rim,
just kissing the rim.
I put some chocolate syrup along the edge of the rim and kind of swirled it all the way down.
It's true, and then some of it overflowed and dripped in our
hands while we were holding it.
They've been very sticky. This recording gear is not happy.
I did even parts for everything. I would suggest when you make yours to maybe do like 2 parts of the liqueurs and 1 part of the vodka, or 1.5 parts, because even parts was a little strong on the vodka side.
1 less part vodka.
One less part vodka, half to 1 part less vodka.
Yeah, great dessert.
Yeah, it was
Alcoholic
delightful. I went for the sweet route.
It was very sweet.
I know we did syrup last time, so I went with chocolate this time.
Yeah. I was a little upset. I listened back to
I can't remember what we did last time.
Well, that was the things. I listened back to some of that first episode just to make sure I didn't repeat any of the creator stuff. And I didn't even remember last time you brought me a chocolate bar.
Oh yeah, I did.
But
I didn't that time. I forgot.
This time.
We did the thing where we took pictures of ourselves with a deer filter on it too.
We did do that. Yeah, it's lovely. We're not going to do any of that this time, but we did drink this drink, and that's new, and it was pretty good.
It was lovely. I think it could do with less vodka, and it would have been spectacular. It was still good though.
I have to kind of be fair to it because I did find it honestly a tad too sweet because it is mostly just chocolate and chocolate liquor, chocolate liqueur. But I also drank a lot the night before, so that might be working against me a bit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, I'll try it again.
I thought this was going to be your jam. Maybe if I add a splash of like a cream or something like that, that would be right up your alley.
It probably would be just something to cut some of that sweetness a little bit, or at least a different kind of sweetness. I don't know, but it was good, and it's all. Look, Higgins, I won't lie, it's always a pleasure to see the martini glasses broken out.
I've been really proud of us the past couple years. We've been garnishing our drinks.
We have,
and we're just leaps and bounds farther. I could have even garnished it more, but that would have involved getting a Hershey bar and, shredding it with a cheese shredder and stuff like
perhaps,
that. Yeah.
And
I didn't feel like doing that. We were
running behind due to technical difficulties, as always. But
banana nut. Readings for squares.
He got me again. Yes, it is that time for that
segment. You left me a little open spot. I don't know if you were ready for it or not.
It wasn't an open invitation, though, was it? No, you got me. Fair enough. So, yes, that's the segment of the show. We're moving on where we're not going to talk about things we've been reading. We're going to talk about things we've been watching.
Do you want to do some like spoopy stuff since we're releasing this in October?
I've got one thing that I made a point to make sure I checked out and talk about, and so we could also give a shout out to someone else. So I'll do that after you tell me about your thing that you've been looking at.
I watched a good bit of The Fall of the House of Usher, the new Mike Flanagan joint on Netflix.
Okay.
It's like Haunting of Hill House, like Midnight Mass, all that stuff.
I see.
Do you know what any of those things are?
I'm looking up the thing that you said. It was called the what?
The Fall of the House of Usher.
Fall of the House. Oh, I've apparently searched this before. It's
all out. It's like an old Edgar Allan Poe, or it's somebody that writes spooky books. Like the same thing they've been doing with all of these things. It's like he finds an olden time spooky thing and then brings it into the nowadays.
Oh, you shouldn't be bringing anything spooky from back then to now.
Yeah, but he is.
TikTok's spooky enough. We're covered. We're good. We don't need it anymore.
But it's really good. It's kind of a Netflix's American Horror Story type show where it's like one season and done thing.
A little anthology series of some sort.
But most of the actors are the same. They're just playing different characters.
Yeah, these are a lot of the Haunting of Hill House people. Yeah. I'm watching a little trailer right now. Looks like it's got the
dad, the sister, the girl that wore gloves in the first one, and the Hill House.
Yeah, and one of the dads is the kid from E.T.
Yeah.
So, that's something.
Yeah.
The one in the flashbacks of Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Elliot from E.T., which I think that's who this is.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a ponytail in the thing that I'm watching. I think.
Yeah. Reminds you of that time that you had a ponytail.
His is pretty bad, but it's okay. It's got that one guy from the Bly Manor one, too. He's a guy that does a lot of drugs and supports video games.
My goodness.
It's spooky. It's got some really dark murder that happens in it, like maybe a little bit of a ghostly element. Guy probably gets his family gets rich in a probably not so good way. I haven't figured out like exactly how he got his
house of Usher.
Yeah, how he got his House of Usher, but something is upset that he got it that way, and so his kids are all getting murdered off, and
that's a shame.
Like especially gruesome ways that kind of match other spooky stories from the past. Like one was called The Telltale Heart, and like the whole time the character's like hearing like a like heart beating in the background, and she's like, "What is that? Do you guys hear that too?" And man, the end of that one's just disgusting. I won't ruin it.
Please don't.
It's so disgusting.
Yeah, we don't need to be talking about that on this podcast. Nothing disgusting if you could. At
But it's
least
good.
not until I've watched it where it's not spoiled. No, it sounds good. I like all these actors and people and things. And this looks. I'm looking at it.
It's 8 episodes, so like it's
perfect
It's
amount.
not really that much of a commitment either.
Yeah, love that.
I'll say there's been like 4 or 5 of these things. This is probably my second favorite behind the Hill House. Hill House is still like
That is the best one.
the
so
best
far.
one still.
Yeah. I watched a fair amount of the Bly Manor one, and I
Bly
liked
Manor
it,
is
but
probably like 4th. The last one they did was probably my least favorite, but it was geared a little bit more towards like a younger audience.
I see. Yeah.
Midnight Mass was right down the line, a little bit of vampire-y
Oh, there
stuff.
you go. Yeah. That's the thing. That's kind of the drawback to these ideas where it's like American Horror Story did it forever, and that did work out well for the most part. But
they're almost done. So.
To take the same actors and just kind of do a different spooky thing every season, like I think it's a really great idea. But you do run into that risk of like, well, this one's not as good as the last one or the second one or what, like it is just part of it.
I still keep coming back because like at the end of the day, like even the worst one was still better than most of the shows on Netflix. So
I think what all of these,
God, that's not what I expected this guy to look like. Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
Man, he's like balding.
Hey man.
He makes a lot of scary stuff though.
Yeah. Well, that's why he has no hair. Scared it right out of him, Higgins.
He made the Doctor Sleep
He did that
movie.
for you. Oh yeah, he did do that. Yeah. Oh, he's pretty good.
Yeah, and he made that Hush movie where the deaf girl gets attacked
by the man that
Oculus.
says Hush. Yeah.
So he makes a lot of good scary stuff, and you should watch it if you haven't already. I've told pretty much everybody at work and stuff to watch it. I watched it without Bethany because she gets scared, and she was gone for the weekend, and I needed something to do, so I picked a show to watch that I could burn through.
Yeah, and then you could always
rewatch it if she wanted to.
Well, I was gonna say you could always like run to her arms when she gets back and tell her how
They're
scared
so
you are.
Scary.
She'd love that. No, that sounds good. I like the biggest thing with all of these kinds of Netflix spooky shows is production value is typically pretty top tier.
They go out of their. It's hard to make a scary TV show. A movie you can do it, but they freak me out sometimes. Freak me out.
If you want, I can tell you something that.
Plus, it's spooky season, so figured I'd get some scary stuff in
That's
me.
true. Spooky season will be just around the corner when we put this one out. So yeah, well done. I don't have anything spooky, but I do have something kind of in a similar vein. We've actually kind of talked about it before, but I had apparently longtime listener / friend / fan of the show is someone we both know, Jesse. Messaged me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, apparently. Didn't know she listened to this, but she told us that she really likes the show, listens to the episodes, but she did have a bit of a beef to pick with you.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because you mentioned a show when we talked about Ice Cream Man that had a similar idea of like the only thing connecting all of these stories that are happening is just one guy. So you mentioned a show called High Maintenance, which is about a traveling weed dealer.
Weed dealer
on a bike.
Yeah.
You said you weren't a big fan, and she said that you're wrong. So
I'm wrong that I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, you're wrong about that. You should be a big fan.
Yeah.
That's her words, not mine. But I wanted to kind of,
I stand by it. I watched 2 episodes. It was fine. Sorry, Jesse.
So you stand by the fact that you're not a big fan. Yeah. That's a bold move.
I probably won't go back.
Bold stance to take. Well, I wanted to at least get into it because she said it was good. You said you weren't really sold on it.
Enough.
Yeah. But I wanted to kind of like, I wanted to just settle the score. I did like it. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be. But yeah, basically that High Maintenance, for anyone who hasn't watched it, it is just various people kind of get into misadventures. And the thing that is connecting all of it is this traveling bike weed dealer guy.
I will say the one episode I did watch where he's like delivering it to that one guy who's just like acting like a real shithead.
I want to talk about that. Yeah.
It was like, it's good. And then you're like, oh, turns out that dude was just doing a bit so he could get free weed.
Yeah. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about it. It does have this kind of chaotic nature to it where, the only thing that's the same is this traveling weed dealer who isn't really the main character episode to episode. I only watched like an episode and a half, and then I had to come over here. But like with the first episode, he's a big part of kind of the first 10 minutes because, as you were saying, there's basically a scene where he gets called in by this guy to buy some weed. And so he's like, all right, I'll be right over. And it's this dude who's like kind of unhinged. Like the opening scene of them is he's yelling at his girlfriend, and then he kind of pressures him into staying to smoke weed with him. And then he's like, well, I've got money, hold on. And he hands him a jar of pennies. And he's like, I kind of need cash. And it's just a guy that you're like, we've all known that guy where we meet a guy and we're like, I don't really want to be around this man. I don't want to hang out with
this guy, but he's not giving me an out to leave.
Yeah, it's because it's like, well, if I just tell him I want the money and I want to leave, he'll get upset and maybe murder me kind of thing. And it just goes and it escalates until eventually he does just settle for taking the jar of pennies, and it's revealed that the two dudes that were there are just fucking with him. They're actors.
They're like French people that are playing a part.
Yeah. And when that happened, like when that reveal happens, I'm like, I really like this. Like it reminded me a lot of shows like Atlanta, where it's essentially like Atlanta and Dave. It's essentially the world we live in, but there's just this bizarre stuff that's happening that's played completely straight. And I don't know, like paired with how it looks, like this was made back in 2016, apparently. I think it either is still going or it just finished a couple years ago. But even that first episode, I don't expect a lot out of kind of pilot episodes for anything. Like, you know, they're obviously kind of finding their feet and seeing what works. But then just production level wise, it's usually not like as good as it gets. But I loved the look of this show. I thought it looked great.
It looks good. And then it's like any other HBO show, so where they go for a little bit of shock factor.
Yeah, you see a man's dick multiple times in this first episode.
You see like a really graphic sex scene in the second episode, I think.
No, it's the first one.
Is it?
Yeah. And that actually going into that is kind of where it didn't fall down for me, but like it lost its pacing, because that whole first sequence with the guys that are messing with the drug dealer and they're actually French or British or whatever. Once that scene ends, it jumps to a completely different storyline, and it is loosely tied back into the drug dealer. I don't think that they kind of nail that though, and also it is more realistic the way they went about it. But just the way that storyline ends is just very, very sad, because basically it's about a guy who he met this girl and they became best friends like in high school or early college, and she's just been kind of dragging him down. So he ends up joining this kind of like addict kind of support group, and they don't act like the people in it that he's becoming friends with and like spending more time with. Like he's kind of getting his own life back on track and doing what he wants to do.
You're talking about basically the main character that's a little bit of a meth addict?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's not actually like, everyone else in the support group doesn't know that he's talking about his friend. Her name is Crystal. So he talks when he finally feels comfortable to share. It's this moment of like, he's talking about Crystal and how it's taken so much from him. It's taking his personality, his time. And she ends up kind of following him to the meeting because she knows he's been avoiding her. And it's just this sad moment at the end where the support group shuns him because they realize, oh, you lied. This is a person. You're not addicted to anything. And then he ends up actually doing meth and like ends back up with her anyway.
Yeah.
And it's very depressing because it's like, oh, she's just going to keep dragging him down to her level. And he was making a conscious effort. He wasn't doing it the right way, but he was making a conscious effort to kind of change his life for the better. And it does come back to the weed dealer, who is supposed to be kind of the main driving force of the show.
He's like the dealer for that guy or something like that.
He's a dealer that doesn't want to, like, he doesn't deal to that guy anymore. And so when they have an interaction finally, and you're like, that's the link, it's just kind of a, like, I have your phone, come and give me drugs. And he's like, I'm just going to get a new phone. And that's the end of it. And then that guy's story ends. And that's the only thing that I think they kind of failed at, is bringing that guy into these other people's stories. Like, maybe it gets better. I only had time to watch one episode and I started the second one. I really like this concept. I really like how it looks. I like that this drug dealer is just kind of
he just gets put in shitty situations, and like too many people have his telephone number, it seems like.
And it's funny just because like everyone is kind of mean to him, and he's just trying to make a go of like earning money and earning a living. Because even when he's not he doesn't take care of himself. None of his shirts seem to fit him. They're all like worn down and like hanging around like his chest. Like that's how low the collar is. Like
he has long hair, but he's also balding a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a really funny scene at the beginning where he's at his barber, and the guy's just like, "You bring me nothing. I don't know what to do with this."
Just a little off the top.
Yeah, and he's like, I mean, sure, whatever. It's like you come into, he like makes this weird car analogy where he's like, yeah, he's like, people come into, they're like, yeah, just fix the window, but don't worry about the engine that's broken kind of thing. It's like, he's just a real dickhead to this guy that is paying him money to just cut it. Like, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of hair, but it's like, he knows that and he doesn't need you pointing it out. Like, I think a lot of that stuff is really, really well done. It was just that tie-in. Like, because even the story itself, I really enjoyed. It was very sad how it ended, and I didn't love that, but it was really well done. It was just they're missing that kind of that pacing and that tying it back in. So I hope I'm going to give it a couple more episodes, I think, because it is fun to watch a show like that where it's like I could pick really kind of any of these in any order, and as long as it's well done, I'm gonna get something out of it. I don't even have to watch the whole show. I can just get what I want out of it and then move on from there.
It was fine, like I said. I already don't watch a lot of TV anyways, unless I'm watching it with Bethany now. So like
you're watching Suits.
I'm watching Suits,
as you should be,
and not much else right now.
Yeah, I definitely see like what you were kind of going, and that's what I wanted to watch it for as well, is to kind of see what you were saying, and I don't disagree with anything that you said either.
It's an anthology series for the most part.
It is, and if it doesn't hook you for whatever reasons that you have, like it just doesn't, and that's kind of the downfall of these anthology shows. It
was the same thing we said about the Ice Cream Man book. It's like some of the issues were really good, and then they had a couple flops in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of just comes with the territory. Like it all, it all can be good, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, really, really glad I at least checked it out. So yeah, that's shouts out to Jesse who listens to this. So yeah. And if you want to tell Higgins that he's wrong about something again,
do it in an email.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, you could do it in an email. We could talk about that right now, actually, if you want, unless you have something else.
No, we don't have any new emails, so I guess
let's talk about how people can give us new email.
Yeah, you can give us a new email at thecomixologyclub at 0-8studios.com.
Yeah, you don't have to leave that pause in there like Higgins did. But yes.
I was thinking I might have said too many zeros
or too many dashes. That's tricky, but you got it.
I got it in one. Got it in one.
So yeah, you can email us. We've had some emails in the past. Ethan Miller emailed us last time. We did a big fun game with that. We hope he enjoyed.
He texted me that he listened. He enjoyed that we made a game out of it.
Oh well, that's lovely. Pretty good. I was going for that.
He said he listened. He listened the day it came out. So
lovely.
A nice fan.
Very loyal fan, yeah. And we'll try to keep these episodes on time for him and anyone else who cares, like him or Jesse or Zach, the other Miller.
And apparently, like 50 to 60 other people, or 1,000 if you look at another site.
Oh, our metrics? Yeah. No, it's very up in the air.
Just like George Clooney.
Yeah.
Man, that joke doesn't land very many places, but at least it lands here.
It's because it's still up in the air.
Yeah.
You got to give it time to land.
Oh, just like George Clooney. But you can find me at other places like Instagram at jsturm93. I have a Twitter. I don't think I've used it in like a year and a half.
Well, it's X now, so
yeah,
you haven't used it at all.
But if you want to find me on there, you can send me something on there too. It's Mike Higgins 93, and you can find Snoop at Instagram now because he's back. Boys and girls, I told you he would be, and now he's back.
You did that the last time we recorded, and shortly after it happened. And I'm not happy about it, but yeah.
You can find him at Snoop_Lynch, and he'll be happy to respond to you on there.
I won't be happy, but I will respond. No, I'll be happy. I'll be slightly happy. It's just something else I have to keep up with. That's all it is. But yeah, you can do that. You can find us there. You can find us at the email. That's always the best place. If you feel like leaving a review.
Do that anywhere you want.
You can do it on Spotify.
Preferably Apple, because you can leave a full-on review and then we can read it.
Well, we get stars, but so you can do stars and then you can do like actual like written reviews.
Yeah, we want words, people.
We'll take anything we can get. Don't get me wrong.
No, we don't got any more. We got 12 ratings, though.
That's
all 5 stars.
Excellent. Love that. Love that for us. But yeah, if you want, leave us a review. If you don't, that's okay too, because we haven't left you a review. So that's fair. And join us next month when we talk about a book that I believe is now my turn to pick.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing an episode in November. So we'll do Claws at the end of the year.
We'll do that December.
We'll do that December. So as far as another book we can read,
you can peruse my shelf if you want to. We can read Uzumaki the last bit of Uzumaki since we didn't get to read it for October.
I'm gonna save that for next October because I'm pretty sure that show got pushed back again to next year.
Oh,
so maybe we can time it out where the last one will come out when the show finally maybe comes out if it ever does. But yeah, we'll leave that for next October. In the meantime, I'm trying to think of something I've been wanting to read. Let's see. Let me just peruse real quick.
I got some superhero stuff up there.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to go back to, or if I want to start something new. We just went back to a book, Higgins, and we got plenty of books to go back to again. But
I like reading new stuff.
Yeah, I'm always on the look for something new. Exactly.
We can read a bunch of Calvin and Hobbes.
I'm trying to think. What if I
That'd be cool.
Trying to think of anything. All right. I found something.
Oh, yeah?
I remembered a book, but I had to look up what the title is. So I'm going to say we covered the first volume of a book called Skyward. So
we did?
No, I'm saying that's what we're going to do.
That's what we're going to?
Yeah. So it's called Skyward. Basically, the premise is one day gravity just stops. People start floating away. Then you cut forward, and it's like we're living in a world without gravity, so we kind of make it work. So you like attach yourself to a thing, and then you'll go to a different place, and then detach yourself from a thing. That's all I know about it, but I've heard pretty good things. So.
It's by Joe Henderson.
It is, yeah, with a Lee
apparently he wrote the show Lucifer, showrunner of Lucifer.
Sexy Devil Show.
Sexy Devil Show.
Love
apparently.
that. I didn't know that. So yeah, there you go. Maybe there'll be some sexy devils in this. So yeah, I think we're just gonna give that a shot. Could be bad, could be fine, could be great. I really don't know.
We hadn't had a doozer in a while, so that like if we get a bad one, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for something really bad. You know, like we give too much on this podcast sometimes, Higgins. We need to
tell people that all of the things we read are good.
Yeah, eventually no one's gonna believe us.
Yeah,
but so maybe this will be that thing where they go, oh no, they know stuff's bad too, but also it could just be really good for us. Find out when we come back next month. In the meantime, though, I will say cheers, guys. That's what I do. I'll remind Higgins, as always, you need to get that egg in you every day. Eat it up. Yum, yum. And now Higgins can say something else.
And Daddy wants some chocolate.
There are a million ways I thought you could go. That's not one of them. But okay.